Each of us has a built-in personality.
Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock-solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this.
Hey, Walter, let's talk a little bit about something that I've been kind of researching for the past couple of years, basically trauma. My hypothesis or my research has shown that trauma is basically the cause of most things that we don't like, I guess. Basically diseases, addictions, bad behavior, so-called bad behavior. And somebody likened it to like having a ship with multiple anchors on it. And each of those anchors is like a trauma from wherever, your childhood, whatever it is. If you have all those traumas on your ship, then it's hard for you to move forward. So I was wondering what you thought about that, what your experience is, and how we could get rid of those things.
Yeah, so I think you're right. I would agree in a sense, but I think that there's another component. So like when you're thinking about trauma, so for example, in the child abuse literature, we know that there are some kids who are sexually abused who don't, like, things are pretty normal. In fact, in a lot of cases, like, they do really well in school and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And then things like neglect, which doesn't really have, I guess, the same stigma that like sexual abuse has. I mean, they're both awful, right? Mm-hmm. In the case of neglect, that's usually one of the worst forms of abuse that a child can go through, right? Yeah. So, but here's the thing. Like soldiers, for example, when they go off to war and they come back, a lot of times, they go through PTSD. If they were in a really bad, in a combat situation, the things that they see, all of those things can really impact them when they come back and try to reintegrate into society. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing, they normally do reintegrate into society. It's usually just a process, right, that they go through. It may take a couple of months, 6 months, 2 months, 2 years. But at the end of that, they're actually pretty well functioning in society. So I think what it comes down to, and there's a lot of research on this because it's kind of like a trendy area of psychology at the moment, is resilience. Mm-hmm. And so some people have a very low resilience. So when they are presented with trauma or a challenge, they have a difficult time trying to see a way around it. And it becomes overwhelming. Other people, on the other hand, they're almost built for challenges and they're able to overcome them like very quickly. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating as a parent. I have a kid of each. One of my kids is incredibly resilient, and the other one has a hard time and needs to learn the tools. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's a lot of people in the middle, right? So I would say that what you're saying is true, but it's probably mediated by the resilience skills of the individual. In other words, you would say that, yeah, traumas are a big deal. Traumas can impact you for life. But normally, for most people, as long as they have a certain level of resilience, that they'll be able to overcome it. And you can think back to like whenever you had a really bad breakup or something, you thought the world was ending, mm-hmm. My life is over. And, you think about when you were younger and stuff like that. But now, when things come up, if you're older, you probably have those tools you've accumulated over time to be able to withstand the challenges and the traumas that creep up. And they're always going to be bad, but there's a process, just like the grieving process with death, you go through a certain process. Same thing, I think, with these. But again, the key is how well are you equipped, with those resilience tools. That's what I would argue. That would be my argument. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, like you said, each of us is kind of has a built-in like personality when we get here, right? And each of your kids has a different one. And I think that from what I found, at least, the trauma can be something, like really small when you're a little kid and you might not even know it. And that can carry forward in some ways. And, it could come from other places, like you said, a breakup or whatever like that. But yeah, I think that is the bottom line, right? Like having the tools to be able to deal with it, either innately or externally, where you have some sort of process where you go through and get rid of those things. So I think that's an important thing to look at, especially if you're trying to change your behaviors from a conscious standpoint. And, if you can keep telling yourself a mantra or whatever, and and your behavior changes, then it's probably more of a conscious level kind of thing, right? But if it's really deep in your subconscious, then you might want to think of other ways to kind of dig it out there and kind of examine what it is.
Yeah. And there's a Denise Scholl book. We can put a link in the show notes that kind of talks about that for traders, right? About, trying to uncover these patterns and things. It's a great book. So absolutely. I mean, trading is, in some ways, I view trading a test of your resilience because it's so difficult, and a lot of people, they give up along the way. We see that. Anything in life where there's a very few people that end up making it, in the end, like pro athletes or whatever, Olympic athletes, there's this sort of like this natural culling mechanism where people will fall off along the way. And I think that's, trading is very similar to that. It has a lot of those aspects. It's not to say that trading is difficult, because I don't like to say, well, complicated. It's not that trading is complicated. It's that we're built in a way that makes it a little bit more difficult than it should be, because it's so, you know what I mean? So then we tend to overcomplicate it because we think, I'm doing something wrong here, so I need to add this or incorporate this, or, it's almost like this idea. Computers have made it easy to do that now. It's almost like, the more things we have, the better off we are, sort of deal. But resilience is the key. So, I mean, if you're thinking about trading, resilience is the key. Resilience is the key for, developing the strategies that you're going to use and throwing away the ones that don't work for you. Resilience is the key when it comes to fine tuning your risk management so that you don't deal with the terrible drawdowns. Resilience is the key when it comes to the psychological pain that drawdowns and, questioning whether or not you're doing the right thing. Drawdowns can come in the way of a broker going bust too, right? It might not be any fault of yours, but it's like a extraneous event. So there's a lot of things that can come up for traders, and many of them, unforeseen. It's like the old quote, the old Donald Rumsfeld quote about there are known knowns, there are known unknowns, and then there are unknown unknowns, which is so true in trading. Like there are those things that are going to come up that you have no idea about, right? And they're going to come up. There are also things they're going to come up that you know about, and then there are some things that you don't know about, but they're going to come up, right? It's all this. It's crazy when you think about it, but it's true, yeah. And so I really would implore anyone listening to this to figure out what are the tools that you have for resilience, because that's going to be the key when these challenges creep up, and they will creep up. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with somebody today, and they said it's a little bit ironic that trading is all about making money and all this material stuff, but ultimately it's looking within and figuring out what's inside of you, right? So I think that's something really important to remember.
Yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Walter.
Thanks.
All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not trading or investment advice.